Have you ever looked at a couple, him, the perfect good guy, her, seemingly devoted, only to later hear the shocking news that she cheated? It's a story that leaves friends bewildered and throws our conventional wisdom about love into a tailspin. "But he was so good to her," we exclaim, and that right there is the heart of the paradox. In my years as a therapist, sitting across from countless individuals grappling with the fallout of infidelity, I've learned that the question isn't just why women cheat, but why they so often cheat on the very men society tells them they should want. The answer is rarely simple and almost never about the man being too nice. It's a complex tapestry woven from threads of individual psychology, dormant childhood patterns, relational dynamics, and the suffocating weight of a perfect persona. Let's pull back the curtain and explore what's really going on. Part 1. The good man illusion and the persona. Paradox. Before we can understand why she strays, we must first deconstruct the very man she's leaving, the good man. The term itself is loaded. In a positive light, he's mature, responsible, kind, and emotionally available. A man who puts her needs first and offers a safe harbor. This is the man women say they want, a partner who provides stability and respect. But there's a shadow side to this archetype. A version pop culture has dubbed the nice guy. This isn't a man who is genuinely kind. He's a man who is pathologically agreeable. He avoids conflict at all costs, suppresses his own needs to appease hers, and seeks validation through her approval. His goodness isn't a sign of strength, but a symptom of fear, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being abandoned. The great psychiatrist Carl Jung gave us a powerful framework for this: the persona and the shadow. The persona is the social mask we wear, the polished, acceptable version of ourselves we present to the world. The nice guy is a man living almost entirely in his persona. He's the perfect boyfriend, the ever-attentive husband. He believes that if he just performs the role of good man flawlessly, always supportive, never angry, always accommodating, he will be rewarded with love and fidelity. The problem? A mask, no matter how perfect, is not a face. It lacks the depth, the texture, the raw authenticity of a whole person. A relationship with a persona can feel strangely sterile. There's no friction, no challenge, no mystery. Stability, which should feel like a safe foundation, begins to feel like a cage. And subconsciously, a woman can often sense this lack of authenticity. She might not be able to articulate it, but she feels she's in a relationship with a carefully curated performance, not a real, dimensional human being. This is where the shadow comes in. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves we repress because we deem them unacceptable. Our anger, our aggression, our raw sexual energy, our selfish desires. The nice guy shoves his entire shadow into a locked basement. He doesn't get angry. He gets quietly resentful. He doesn't express his desires. He becomes passive-aggressive. He loses his edge, that masculine polarity that creates spark and attraction. This brings us to the infamous bad boy attraction. It's not that women are drawn to cruelty. It's that the bad boy lives unapologetically in his shadow. He represents a kind of untamed freedom, an authenticity, however destructive, that stands in stark contrast to the nice guy's pleasing facade. He isn't afraid of conflict. He has boundaries. He pursues what he wants. For a woman who is perhaps too locked in her own good girl persona, this can be unconsciously intoxicating. He represents the wild, forbidden parts of herself she has been taught to deny. His chaotic energy feels more alive than the predictable, suffocating goodness of her partner. I once worked with a client. Let's call her Clara, who cheated on her husband, David. By all accounts, David was a saint. He cooked, he cleaned, he supported her career, and he never raised his voice. But Clara described their life as living in a beautifully decorated beige room. The man she had an affair with was a musician, unreliable, moody, and passionate. He wasn't a better man, not by a long shot, but he was a whole man. He had a shadow, and in its darkness, Clara felt she could finally explore her own. Her affair wasn't a rejection of David's goodness, but a desperate flight from the emotional sterility of his perfection. Part 2. The inner world. A void seeking to be filled, while the dynamics of the good man are a crucial piece of the puzzle. The decision to cheat is ultimately an internal one, more often than not. The affair is less about the partner and more about a pre-existing void within the woman herself. Low self-esteem and the hunger for validation. This is perhaps the most common undercurrent I see in my practice. A person with low self-esteem doesn't truly believe they are worthy of unconditional love. They carry a deep-seated feeling of being not enough. A stable, loving relationship with a good man can be terrifying for someone with a damaged sense of self-worth. His consistent love doesn't feel validating. It feels like a mistake he will eventually discover. She lives in fear of the day he'll figure her out and leave. So what does she do? She seeks validation elsewhere. The attention of a new person provides a powerful, addictive hit of validation. It's fresh, it's exciting, and it temporarily quiets the inner critic that says she's unlovable. This is the psychology of the social butterfly archetype, the woman who thrives on attention. She's charming and flirty by default, but it's not just a personality trait. It's a survival mechanism. If she doesn't get a constant stream of validation from her partner, and a good man in a comfortable relationship may stop the intense wooing of the early days, she'll find it elsewhere. An innocent DM, a late-night chat, it starts small. An emotional affair that feels harmless because nothing physical happened. But she's investing her emotional energy in another man because he is feeding her starving self-esteem. A client. Megan was married to a wonderful, steady man. Yet she found herself drawn into an online affair with a colleague. He just saw me, she explained, tears in her eyes. My husband loves me, I know he does. But he loves the mom and the wife. This other man saw me, the smart, funny woman. He made me feel special. The tragedy was that her husband did see her that way, but the routine of life had dulled the expression of it. Her deep-seated insecurity couldn't survive on the quiet, assumed love of a stable marriage. It needed the loud, explicit validation of a new admirer. She was cheating not to leave her husband but to feel worthy of him. Attachment styles. The unseen blueprint from childhood. Often, our patterns in adult relationships are echoes of our earliest bonds. Attachment theory, pioneered by John Bowlby, explains this beautifully. The way our primary caregivers responded to our needs as infants creates a blueprint for how we connect with others for the rest of our lives. There are 4 main styles. Secure attachment. The child's needs were met consistently. As adults, they are comfortable with intimacy and confident in their relationships. They don't cheat often. Anxious attachment. The caregiver was inconsistent, sometimes loving, sometimes distant. This creates a deep-seated fear of abandonment. As adults, they are often clingy, need constant reassurance, and are hypersensitive to any sign of distance. They might cheat in a desperate, panicked attempt to feel secure when they perceive their partner pulling away, often creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Avoidant attachment. The caregiver was emotionally distant or dismissive. The child learns that their needs won't be met and becomes fiercely self-reliant. As adults, they equate intimacy with a loss of independence. They keep partners at arm's length. This is the too independent woman archetype. She avoids labels and resists commitment. When a relationship gets too close, it feels suffocating, and an affair becomes a way to create distance and reassert her freedom. She rationalizes it by saying, "We were never official anyway." Anxious avoidant, disorganized attachment. This often stems from a childhood of trauma or abuse. The caregiver was both a source of comfort and a source of fear. As adults, they desperately crave intimacy, but are also terrified of it. Their relationships are often chaotic and self-sabotaging. Understanding a woman's attachment style provides a profound insight into her actions. A woman with an anxious style might cheat on a good man because his temporary distraction with work feels like an impending abandonment. A woman with an avoidant style might cheat precisely because he's a good man who wants to get closer. The affair is her escape hatch from the intimacy she fears. Part 3. The relationship rut, when stability becomes a cage, even with 2 psychologically healthy individuals. A relationship can still become a breeding ground for infidelity if it's not nurtured. Good men often excel at creating stability, but stability without stimulation can curdle into boredom. The hedonic treadmill and the addiction to novelty psychology has a term for our tendency to get used to good things: hedonic adaptation, or the hedonic treadmill. When we first fall in love, our brains are flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, creating a euphoric rush. But over time, our brains adapt. That intense, passionate love, what psychologists call passionate love, inevitably cools and, if the relationship is healthy, transitions into a deep, comforting bond, compassionate love. But for some, this transition feels like a death. They confuse the adrenaline of early love with genuine connection. This is the thrill seeker. She's addicted to the rush of the new. A stable, predictable relationship feels like a prison. The good man who offers routine and reliability becomes the warden. Cheating isn't necessarily malicious. It's a way to get her fix of excitement when the initial spark of her primary relationship fades. She jumps from hobbies, jobs, and partners, always chasing that next high. Her infidelity is a symptom of her inability to find satisfaction in the quiet beauty of compassionate love. One of the most effective ways to combat this is by actively injecting novelty into the relationship. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's research suggests that couples who regularly engage in new and exciting activities together report higher levels of marital satisfaction. It doesn't have to be skydiving. It can be trying a new restaurant, taking a dance class, or planning a surprise weekend trip. Just the act of planning and anticipating something new can reignite positive feelings. When a good man gets comfortable and lets the relationship run on autopilot, he unwittingly creates a vacuum that the thrill of an affair can easily fill. Mismatched love languages, speaking past each other. Sometimes, a good man is doing everything he thinks is right, but it's not what his partner needs to feel loved. This is the core of Dr. Gary Chapman's concept of the 5 love languages. Words of affirmation, compliments, encouragement, saying I love you, acts of service, doing chores, running errands, taking care of tasks, receiving gifts, tangible symbols of love, quality time, undivided attention, shared activities, physical touch, hugs, hand-holding, sex, and non-sexual affection. A good man, whose primary love language is acts of service, might show his love by working long hours to provide for the family, fixing things around the house and always making sure her car has gas. He's a great provider. But if his wife's primary language is quality time or words of affirmation, his acts of service will go unnoticed. Her emotional love tank will be running on empty. She'll feel lonely and unappreciated, despite having a husband who is, by his own definition, doing everything right. Then, a coworker starts paying attention to her at lunch, quality time, and tells her she's brilliant, words of affirmation. Suddenly she feels seen and adored in a way she hasn't in years. The affair isn't about sex. It's about finally hearing her native tongue after years of feeling like a foreigner in her own marriage. Part 4. The weaponization of infidelity and flawed logic. Not all infidelity stems from subconscious needs or relationship neglect. Sometimes it's a conscious, albeit dysfunctional choice rooted in a flawed worldview. The revenge cheater. Infidelity as a weapon. This woman doesn't cheat for pleasure. She cheats to inflict pain. Her infidelity is a calculated act of retribution for a perceived wrong. Maybe her partner forgot an anniversary, made a joke at her expense, or was caught in a harmless but flirtatious conversation. In her mind, this justifies a devastating betrayal. The key here is that she wants to be found out. The pain is the point. She isn't seeking another man. She's seeking to make her current partner suffer. This isn't about finding a new connection. It's about severing the old one in the most brutal way possible. It's a sign of profound emotional immaturity and an inability to handle conflict in a healthy way. The eternal victim. You drove me to it. This archetype is a master of deflection. Nothing is ever her fault. Her exes were all toxic, her bosses were unfair, and her life is a series of injustices. If she cheats, it's because her partner drove her to it. He neglected her, he didn't listen, he wasn't emotionally available. She weaponizes her vulnerability to avoid accountability. By framing her betrayal as a consequence of his failures, she absolves herself of guilt and positions herself as the wronged party. This is manipulation, pure and simple. A man in a relationship with an eternal victim will find himself constantly walking on eggshells and being guilt-tripped. No amount of goodness can ever be enough, because her identity is built on being a martyr. The affair simply becomes the next chapter in her long story of being wronged. Conclusion. Beyond good and evil. So we return to our original baffling question: why do women cheat on good men? The answer, as we've seen, is that infidelity is rarely a referendum on a man's goodness. It is a complex human tragedy born from a collision of forces: a woman's unresolved psychological wounds, her unmet needs for validation and authentic connection, and a relationship that has fallen into a rut of predictability. It can be a desperate search for a lost part of herself, a misguided attempt to feel alive, or a maladaptive strategy to escape pain or punish a partner. A good man can provide a beautiful home, security, and kindness, but he cannot fill a void in his partner's self-esteem. He cannot single-handedly heal her childhood attachment wounds. He cannot be a constant source of thrilling novelty if the relationship isn't mutually nurtured. And if his goodness is merely a persona, a mask hiding his own authentic self, then his very perfection becomes a catalyst for her rebellion. Cheating is never the answer. It is a choice, a selfish and often cowardly one that creates devastating consequences for everyone involved, especially children. But to prevent it and to heal from it, we must move beyond simplistic labels. It's not about good guys versus bad boys or victims versus villains. It's about understanding the deep, often hidden psychological currents that drive human behavior. A healthy, faithful relationship requires more than just a good man and a grateful woman. It requires two whole, self-aware individuals who are brave enough to confront their own shadows, communicate their deepest needs, and actively choose to create a life that is not just stable, but truly, authentically alive.